Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. In today's episode, we're speaking with Chad Sarno, an internationally respected chefpreneur, author, mentor, and educator who's on a mission to prove that healthy eating really is delicious. As the co-founder of Wicked Healthy and Gathered Foods, along with his brother Derek, Chad is building a plant-based culinary empire that's encouraging people to simply eat more plants. He's the co-author of more than 10 health-related books, including the New York Times bestseller, Crazy Sexy Kitchen. Chad has launched boutique plant-based restaurant brands throughout Europe and has consulted on restaurant launches globally. In 2009, he helped launch Whole Foods' healthy eating program, Health Starts Here, while serving as the company's global R&D chef and culinary media spokesperson. Join us today as we chat with Chad about why plant-based eating is so critical, how he and his brother built their brand, and what's next for plant-based enthusiasts. There he is. Chad, welcome, buddy. Good to see
Kirk,
you.
how are you? You too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy holidays. Are you ready? Are the kiddos ready?
You too. Oh, they're ready. They're ready. We'll see. We'll see what Santa brings them.
Hey, I gotta kick this off. I'm going to go crazy here. I'm very, first of all, you're just a good guy. You're a cool guy. You live in Austin, Texas. And I'm really, really excited about this. I think I've told you a couple of times that my family made the kind of the clean break maybe 4 years ago to be a little bit more plant-based, maybe 80-20 as you've recommended. And what's so cool about it is, I've studied cuisine most of my life, right? Grew up in a master pastry chef's kitchen home. And when my family and I dove into plant-based cooking, it was like we were just learning how to cook again. And let me read part of a paragraph. And here's the book, my favorite book,
Love it.
But this paragraph is what we preach to our children, and this is what keeps us going, right? This is you guys, you and Derek. We're from New England, so for us, wicked healthy means good for you. Food that tastes good. So good that you think it must be bad for you. The bottom line is we want you to be healthy because healthy people are full of life. They're upbeat, confident, and energetic. We want you to eat more vegetables, especially the green ones. We'd prefer if they were organic, maybe even local. I mean, that's it. We're done. We're done here, right? My gosh.
It's as simple as that, simple as that.
It is. First and foremost, how's Austin? You're in the new studio, right?
I am. Well, this is my office. That's totally empty right now because we just moved in. So we just opened up our Gathered Foods headquarters here in Austin. And for those of you who know Austin, it's on St. Elmo at this place called The Yard, which is it's becoming a little destination here. There's great Austin distillery here. There's St. Elmo Brewing Company, Tesla headquarters, showroom is right across the parking lot. So it's definitely picking up, and Gathered Foods is calling it our new home too. So we just built out 10,000 square foot space. Well, 14,000 if you included the mezzanine, but 10,000 on the main level, which is all of our office, all of our headquarters. But I have also my R&D kitchen lab and my kitchen studio, which I'm really excited about.
Is that built out and ready to go as well?
Everything's ready to go. Yeah, it's beautiful. I have Heston has been our partner with the build out, so it's been pretty remarkable for.
Oh my goodness!
Anybody who knows Heston, it's incredible. I don't rep their product, but it's my favorite. It's
reputable, right?
It sure is. Yeah.
I'm going to have to connect you with Escaffier's got a campus there in Austin. So if you need help or just gawkers, we'll send them over.
Yeah, excellent.
And how's Derek? How's your brother? I love his social media presence. Can I just tell
Derek's you? Derek's good. He's taking some time off for the first time in a very long time. So he's probably not doing much besides just cooking. So
no, that's good. I've only met Derek once, and it was ironically enough with Ken at the farmer's market in Portland, Oregon. It was perfect.
Nice.
I think he was about to head to London. Does he live in London full time? Or
yeah, he recently bought a house. He's been there for rounding out almost 5 years. He's the head of plant-based at plant-based innovation at Tesco. So he is sort of the gatekeeper for all the plant-based brands that enter Tesco, the retailer over there.
I love it. I love it. I'll send him a bill for that little plug right there. So,
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
hey, so Chad, in the book, in Wicked Healthy, you state that mom always told you to eat your vegetables.
Mhm.
And now look at you is what it says in the book. So take us back a little bit. Was it because of mom that plant-based eating became so important in your life, or was it serendipitous? It just happened.
I see everybody has these certain aha moments in order to get pushed to plant-based, whether it's health, whether it's religion, whether it's seeing animal suffering firsthand. And that empathy is quite powerful. But for me, I first got introduced to the connection, not even just plant-based, but the connection that food had onto my health with. When I was young, I had super bad asthma. I was in and out of hospitals my whole childhood, and I was on so many inhalers. I used to breathe off a nebulizer. It got to the point where I was breathing off a nebulizer on the weekends. I don't know how many times I did that. It felt like it's all a blur and all blurs together. But I remember being pretty crippled with asthma. Yeah, I didn't play a lot of sports, and I would have asthma attacks quite regularly. It's pretty scary as a kid,
Mhm.
and a friend, somebody told me, I cannot rack my brain about who it was, but I heard it somewhere. And I've always said it's a friend of the family, but I heard it somewhere that dairy contributed to asthma. And so I was in my late teenage years at that time, and I stopped eating dairy products. And within a couple months, I was off all my inhalers. And that aha moment for me was like, it was massive, because it was everything that it was my first look into behind the curtain of the information that wasn't mainstream. I mean, no doctor told me that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I
yeah,
was
yeah.
and it got me really angry. It got because I was young, I was angry. I've always had a difficult time with authority. And so
It's
now I
kind of a
look back.
chef thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And now I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I'm like, why won't you listen? So but no, so it's I always had a hard time with authority, and the fact that these people that we looked at as experts, of doctors who were by my side all those years of having asthma, never told me that. It got me really angry and felt betrayed almost, from these people that I trusted growing up.
Sure, sure.
And I mean, my parents didn't know better, so it's not no blame on them, but the doctors, we were looking at them as experts. I went to all these allergists and all this. Nobody said anything, and so I used that fuel to find my passion with what I wanted to do. And I had, by default, my only jobs were restaurants growing up, and
Mhm,
even to this day. Um, but but um, but at the time, I used that fuel to dig deeper. I used that anger to dig deeper, and to really feed that passion of understanding the why. And so I dove into that, and I dove into the connection between health and foods that we eat, and the rest is history. But that was like that anger that I had of feeling that sort of betrayal, that I wasn't told that as a young guy, that connection, it really that's what seeded my passion, I would say, for
yeah,
getting into plant-based.
totally makes sense. And so fast forward today, you and Derek together, you're prolific ambassadors for plant-based healthy eating. Do you believe that shifting, so you're a teenager, right? When that shift occurred, um, do you believe that shifting to a plant-based diet lifestyle also fueled your interest in becoming a chef, maybe to help others?
Yeah, without a doubt, because um I wanted to share. I felt like I now had an answer that helped me, that I wanted to share. And and I've seen this over the years, of like, if somebody has a personal experience, like, it has to be personal in order for someone to adopt such a huge change, because it's a lifestyle change. It's not just a diet change, as you know, Kurt. Like, it's a
Absolutely.
massive
Yeah.
lifestyle change, and you start thinking of things differently. And people look at their diet just like they do religion, just like they do politics. They hold it very near and dear, very close to their heart. It becomes their identity. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so for us, like, yeah, I mean, it was definitely it was definitely a huge shift. It was a huge shift to really go in that direction of plant-based, and yeah. So
How did the cooking piece start then? Did you find yourself in restaurants, sort of
yeah.
over here by
I mean,
yourself, like, hey, I'm just going to work on these
yeah.
veggies?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I mean, I worked at a steak restaurant. I was, cooking steaks, when I was right when I started to become vegan, and I was like, this doesn't really make sense. So
what's wrong with this
it doesn't
picture? Yeah.
doesn't doesn't really make sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, but by default, I was in restaurants just because it was what I was used to, and when I wanted to share as much as I could with people, and so I started teaching. I started hitting the road teaching, and it was in the younger years when I was with this place called the Tree of Life, which is this raw food retreat center down in Arizona, and I started doing a lot around raw foods and healthy vegan foods, whole vegan foods kind of thing. And so I started to teach, and I just picked up teaching, and I didn't have the first, bit of knowledge of how to teach anything, except I just wanted to share my experience and share recipes. And so I set up this whole tour. This is like way before my time. Like I set up this whole tour of doing these vegan raw food classes. And I remember I had this little Saturn. I don't even think that car maker is around
Oh
anymore.
gosh.
But I had a little Saturn with a roof rack, and I bought a bunch of knives. I bought some some salad which are like spiral slicers, and mandolins and microplane zesters and all these things. And I filled my roof rack with all these products. And I printed this little book. It was called Vital Creations. I have to get you a copy of it. It was my
Oh my
first
good.
home printed book with all like word art and all these things on it. And I would sell those, and I set up myself a tour, and for about a year and a half I traveled in my little Saturn and unloaded my products and put them on a table and would teach this class, and I'd go to the next place, and I did it for about a year and a half, really sharing, just wanting to share, no other
Yeah.
reason besides wanting to share. And so that's how I naturally fell
I,
into
I
teaching.
love that, sir. Well, that's entrepreneurship too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
taking the bull by the horns.
Yeah.
You mentioned raw food. Woody Harrelson, big fan. Um, he provided a very passionate forward in Wicked Healthy in the book. And
Mhm.
as I read it again this morning, I was wondering, is has it been or is it helpful that celebrities like Woody and others
Mhm.
um, promote things, particularly healthy lifestyles? Woody talks about how when he's working, and you were his personal chef for a
Mhm.
while, and he talks about loving raw food while he's working because it doesn't bring
Mhm.
him down, keeps him
Mhm.
fresh
Mhm.
and clean and all of that. Um, there's an evangelistic sort of component to that, right? if
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
get a celebrity who's got a voice, right, and a presence, you can really promote things. Do you believe it helps in this space, in the plant-based space?
100, oh, without a doubt, 110%. Because if you have your product can be everywhere. I'm talking from the CPG perspective, a consumer
Sure.
product
Yeah.
perspective. Your product can be everywhere, but if the brand awareness is not there and the adoption is not there, it's not going to sell. You know what I mean? People aren't going to know
Sure.
what's there in that corner of the store. People aren't going to know what it is or how it functions or what to attribute to. Those influences are massive, and so we have some really exciting partnerships we're working on right now. One of them was with Support and Feed, which is Billie Eilish's mom's foundation, and
Cool.
and Billie and her mom Maggie and her brother Phineas and her dad, like, they were raised vegan, and so their whole life they've been raised vegan. And seeing her as like the biggest star right now, I would say, on stage globally, I would say
Hands down. Yeah.
she has an opportunity to make a major change. The fact that if she could stand up on stage and just tell people to go plant-based, for one day, just try it, the amount of impact that she will have. I mean, if you get 110 million followers on a social media platform, it's just exponential. There's nothing like that voice. You know what I mean? And so we're at a time and age where social media you need that influence for a product brand, and you need that support for a product brand. So
Yeah. Powerful, powerful. I also love the comments. Dr. Michael Clapper, he talks about
that,
how
I love him.
wonderful, wonderful, big fan. No nutrients, proteins, vitamins, or minerals found in meats. There are none that you can't find in plants. Chad, do you believe that society is beginning to understand that more and more? I did a little bit of research. I mean, it just keeps going up, but almost 10 million people are self-identifying as plant-based in the United States. That's up
Yeah.
3,000% in the last
Yeah.
decade, right?
Yeah. What's crazy is that if you look, first of all, I love Michael. I was just with him in New York
Yeah.
last weekend for an event. So I loved seeing him. I hadn't seen him in a while. But what's amazing is if you look at, because I'm now in the CPG space, so I'm in the retail product space now. And of course, I focus on culinary, but understanding new data and a different perspective with what I'm doing now. And over 50% of shoppers in the US are actively seeking plant-based alternatives. Over 50%, which is crazy. It was like
Wow.
49% a couple
Wow.
months ago, and I just saw new data around 52%. In the UK, it's almost 77%, 75 or 77% of shoppers that are actively seeking protein alternatives. And it's that whole, I hate the term flexitarian because we're all flexitarians since we were born. But I think I think that shopper is the one that's really booming the sales of plant-based proteins in particular. Because if you look at, and this has gone through also the way that plant-based products are merchandised. So if you look at how, I mean, Beyond Meat's a perfect example. When they started selling their product, they were selling it in the vegan section. You work at a retail store, that probably 5% of your shoppers are going to that vegan section in the frozen area. You know what I mean? It's 5%, right? At the time, anyways. Once you start merchandising that plant-based meat next to regular meat, you're getting the shopper that is that flexitarian shopper that's going to be in the meat department and be like, you know what? I'm going to try this plant-based protein this week because I'm going to swap it out for this meal, right? And so you get that shopper and you get that adoption. They saw sales, grow tenfold over just by where it was placed in merchandise. And retailers are following suit. Now you see a lot of the burgers are in the meat section, right? And a lot of plant-based chickens are in the meat section. A lot of dairies are in the dairy section. So it's all becoming integrated, which is smart because that vegan shopper will find it. You know what I mean? I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll drive 30 miles if I find out a fast food joint is offering a vegan burger. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the vegans will find it. We have this certain tracker, but yeah, and so that's huge. I mean, to be able to see that growth just in the past decade has just been exponential.
When I introduced you, I mentioned the research and development work that you did with Whole Foods and even outside from Whole Foods. I think for many of the students that'll listen to this chat, they'll be fascinated by that. Can you speak a little bit about that career? Is that
Yeah.
A viable career or a path, I should say, for culinarians that is more open today than it may have been a few years ago?
It is, and I would say R&D for products is a great way to go. It was an interesting role at Whole Foods. I was hired on by leadership to help them articulate a new core value around health eating education for stakeholders. And so we translated that internally to these really amazing internal programs to essentially help lower healthcare costs at the end of the day because they're self-insured. So that was one of the main reasons. I mean, the immersion programs, Rip Esselstyn and those guys and his dad have led. I'm not even sure if they're doing them anymore, but so I was also tasked to do a bunch of R&D around, no salt, no fat, no sugar, and it was really difficult, and so I would say that was one of the most challenging paths in careers that I've taken on is those years because of the politics that I had to deal with from a leadership level and being hired for a new program during a hiring freeze for a new position that didn't exist. that didn't make me the biggest fan. That didn't create many fans for me. But no, from an R&D standpoint, I mean, I did a lot of recipe development that were consumer facing and stuff like that. I would necessarily call that role so much focus on the R&D of now what I understand R&D of working with Wicked and working with Good Catch. We're basically doing benchtop testing we're doing benchtop testing, and we're doing it everything from whiteboard to benchtop to commercialization, and that's been an amazing journey, is learning the ins and outs of what it takes to commercialize product. It's really hard, and it's not easy. This is why people go to school
Exactly.
for this, and I'm self-taught, and I'm thrown in it, and that's how I learn best personally. um, I obviously surround myself with people that know far more than I do. And that's the only way to, I think, operate a business, and a successful business, is know that you are not the smartest one in the room.
That's called leadership, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good
exactly.
leadership. Yeah.
And so working with that process alone has been amazing. It's been an amazing journey of understanding, what I can do here in my kitchen, and then trying to scale it, that's fully automated, with ingredients that function differently than what you can buy in a store. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot of nuances there, but it's been a journey, good
That's a
journey.
that's a great response. So phenomenal career. I had the good pleasure of meeting you a few years ago. You've worked as an executive chef, consultant in Europe, like I mentioned earlier. Spent some time with Whole Foods, R&D, culinary media spokesperson. Served as a VP of culinary wellness and plant-based education, as we know. Can you walk me through your journey? Um, from when you first knew that this was your calling to launching
Mhm,
your own business. The entrepreneurship part of this is so
mhm,
fascinating and interesting to
mhm,
me. Was that always a goal, or did you always
mhm.
just want to make good food? You still want to make great food, but you've parlayed this into a business that did not exist when you started doing this,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
a
yeah,
marketplace.
yeah. It's been amazing to watch, to just kind of be that observer in it all, and I think that's been critical to continue to observe, and not be so in it. And this is something I've really learned from my brother, and this is why we walk with each other really well in business and in partnership, is we keep each other in check, which is really good. I mean, he's been studying Buddhism for a number of years, so we bring some of that philosophy into what we do, even though he's probably tough to work with, and I have to translate being the good cop, but together as a partnership, I mean, he's, teaching me to be that observer has been critical. And over the years of not allowing yourself to get in the way, and is in learning from your mistakes and taking them as learnings. I've fallen down a lot. I've fallen down, I've screwed up, and I've made some poor choices. But I've also done it because I'm mission driven. Everything I've done is, as soon as that aha moment happened, that I stopped taking an inhaler, that put me on the path of wanting to understand more. And as soon as I turned back the curtain, I started to look at all the suffering that I had been a part of all those years of animal consumption. And it hit me hard, because I had pets growing up, and that turned into health, turned into a driver. That was how I got seated in this mindset. But once I turned back the curtain, animal rights and animal cruelty and all of that really was a huge driver. And so I devoted my path and my career to alleviate suffering as much as I can through everything that I do. And if I can do that through amazing food and get people to listen, that's great. That's food is always a conversation starter. And if you can make somebody a kick-ass meal and not tell them it's vegan, and just be a stellar meal, and they'll walk away saying, wow, that was incredible, and me knowing that it was, the animals were not served, and then them asking questions, I mean, it's the best conversation starter. This, Kirk, and it's probably what you teach. And and so what I've been able to measure my career, if I were to measure it with anything, is really taking on projects. And I can kind of see this trajectory over the years of taking on projects that had that impact opportunity was the biggest driver. And so going into the restaurants, I was teaching on my own. I was traveling around doing consultancy. Then I got brought into a restaurant group in Europe. I opened up 6 restaurants over there, and I thought that impact opportunity was huge. And to be able to reach a lot of people, but it wasn't enough, for me. And I'm
Sure.
constantly driven. So I guess there's that ego side of it, that it wasn't good enough for me. And so I wanted to reach more, but I recognize that, and so I wanted to reach more people with my work, but it didn't have to be Chad doing it. So that's when the opportunity came up with Whole Foods. Like, it wasn't Chad's show. It was, I worked for Whole Foods under the radar. And even though I did some media spokesperson stuff, I knew that it was reaching a wider audience. I was teaching more people, and I was able to, even if it was by, not, it was indirect, but it was, I was able to still share and bring my knowledge and what I was doing and my experience to that. And then, so it was a natural progression to go to Ruby Online Culinary School to be able to reach a wider audience, right? And a digital online platform audience. And then the natural progression was to CPG. So you go from teaching on my own to, brick and mortar locations, to a chain of restaurants, to a retailer, to an online school, to, to a CPG. And CPG is where I needed to be. I needed to get I had to check all those boxes and learn from my mistakes and surround myself with people that are far smarter than I am along the way, to get to a point where I was like, you know what, I want to take this and have it available everywhere. And so, Wicked, I obviously, the majority of that success I hand over to my brother. I mean, he's been incredible force behind that brand. And so at the same time, we started both brands, Good Catch and Wicked, and both of them have just been incredible over the past 4 years, which we can certainly get into. But it's been a progression, and impact opportunity has been the driver.
Now, such a great message for students. It's about the journey, right? I have to ask, are you and Derek secretly really ninjas? Are you?
100%. Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
No, I love the storytelling. You're a storyteller. Were there some critical decisions? People always ask that I'm not going to ask this in a negative way. I'm going to ask it in a positive way. Were there some critical decisions along the way that you and Derek stepped back and said, wow, really glad we went that route?
Yeah. I think I welcomed my first son into the world about 5 years ago. He's 5 years old. And I have a 2-year-old now too. Which is keeping me busy. But 5 years ago is when, a little over 5 years ago, right before he was born, the opportunity was, it all kind of came to a head. Like, Derek had taken a sabbatical from working, and he was raising squirrels, baking bread, and, smoking pot in Oregon. And then I was with Ruby, and I was looking for some next steps of what I want to do. And so it came to a head of, like, we knew that we wanted to get in the CPG space, and we were talking a lot. Our book had just came out. Tesco had reached out, which is one of the largest retailers, as you know, globally. And they reached out, and they wanted to license the brand. And they reached out to Derek, and they said, hey, we want to license the Wicked brand. And so, the leadership came out to Oregon and worked with Derek a lot. And so Derek moved over there to help launch our brand within Tesco, Wicked Kitchen. So Wicked Healthy was our brand. They loved the Wicked philosophy around the book and all the videos that we were doing. And so Derek jumped on that opportunity as Wicked. And then we also, at the same time, we wanted an impact project. And so we got together with a number of our close friends and investors. Chris Kerr, who's our business partner in all endeavors, but one of my dearest friends, he runs Unovus Partners, and prior to that, he was with New Crop Capital, and their whole focus of investment, they have probably three dozen companies in their portfolio, and their whole focus is disrupting animal agriculture. And so that's where all their investments would go. Excuse me. So in speaking with him around the same time, we determined that the white space was around the oceans. There was a lot of burgers as Beyond was starting to take off, and Possible was in the works. And we knew that we needed to address the oceans because they needed to be addressed in terms of having some alternatives to keep, fish off our plates in the oceans. And so we started Good Catch. And so it was literally around the same month or two that we got that call from Tesco. Well, Derek got that call on behalf of Wicked. And then we also got the seed funding for Good Catch. And so they were birthed around the same time. Derek went to the UK to run the UK brand of Wicked, and I stayed here to run the Good Catch brand, all under Wicked, being the driver behind us. And fast forward 4 years, we with Good Catch, we have 9 SKUs on market. We've addressed 3 of the major species that are consumed globally. We got whitefish and crab, tuna, salmon. We're launching, and some others in this year in 22. And then with Wicked, we just created a global brand because it was just a UK brand. It was licensed by Tesco. And 5 years later from launching, we have 180 products in store, 160 to 180 products in store under the Wicked Kitchen label within Tesco. And so we formed a company in the US called Wicked Kitchen. And we have an amazing team. We have like 19 on staff, that incredible leadership. And we just launched in this past July. We launched 26 products in 2,500 stores in Kroger and in Sprouts. And we're about to launch in a big way again with the same partners, some other categories, which is very exciting. And Good Catch is doing great, saving some fishes. So
Unbelievable.
I don't know if I even answered a question there, but I just
no. I mean, it's wonderful to hear you tell the story. There's humility, there's pride, there's innovation. It's just fun to listen to the story. I wish. Well, our students will see it in a few weeks when it goes live. I wanted to ask. I was thinking while you were speaking there, it's pretty clear that plant-based eating is growing in popularity, like I mentioned earlier. Restaurants, fast food chains, catering to this marketplace, right? Where do you see, I'm not going to hold you to it, but where is it going in the future? It's definitely not a trend, right?
It's not. It's not. Yeah, it's here. I mean, it's not a trend. I mean, 10 years ago it was a trend, or even 8 years ago it was a trend. But I mean, if you look at, I think it grows far beyond even a mega trend. It's just this micro trends, mega trends, all that, right? All those, it's just words, right? But it's at the end of the day, when you have some of the largest animal agriculture companies that you've been fighting up against now like I've been into animal rights for a number of years, which I keep very much on the down low, and I'm an activist through my work and through food. But these animal ag companies that have been part of the problem for all these years, and some of these large, massive sort of legacy brands that have been part of the problem all these years are now coming on board to invest and launch their own brands within plant-based. And that's when the tides change, and things have shifted. And behind Good Catch, we have one of our first strategic partners, because when it comes to investment, we've just closed Series B2 round, which is a B extension round, but we had their seed money, and then you get into the series, different series A, B, C, so on and so forth. But we have with our seed round and our A round, we had mostly impact investors, so mostly people that were aligned with the mission and all that. The only strategic that we had early was a company called PHW, which is the largest poultry company in Europe, out of Germany. And so that was interesting. But then we get into our B round, and our B round, we have Maple Leaf Foods, which is the largest pork producer and exporter of pork out of Canada, who also have Greenleaf Foods, who bought Field Roast and Light Life. So we have them on the cap table. We also have General Mills on the cap table with the Series B. So once you see this investment coming from these massive protein companies, and a lot of these are no longer calling themselves pork companies or chicken companies.
Sure.
CEO of Tyson came out, and I was sitting at the table with the CEO of Maple Leaf, and he says, "We are a protein company. We're not a pork company. We're not a deli meat company. We are a protein company." And they need to diversify their protein because the consumer, it's not sustainable, and they know that. And it's they're seeing the demand, and to be able to put those resources there has been amazing. With Good Catch, one of our first partners was Bumblebee out of the gate as our distribution partner.
Tuna, yeah.
So So it's here to stay. It's definitely not a trend. And I think for any chefs that are listening, or the chefs that have restaurants, if you're not on the boat with plant protein, then you're going to be scurrying to catch up.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's far beyond. Don't serve couscous and grilled vegetables. Like, just don't do it. As a side dish maybe, but there's just so much more than that, and
Oh,
plants are far more than a side dish, and more and more people are demanding it, and it's our job as experts in the culinary world to meet the consumer where they're at, not just to do it selfishly of what we want to serve, but what people want.
oh,
So
well said, 100%. Last night at the dinner table, we had an avocado bar last night. We were all just chatting. Um, and the kids love that because there's all kinds of toppings and stuff.
mhm.
And I was telling my wife Gretchen that we were going to chat today, and I'm holding the book up, and they're like, "What? Wait, what? You're going to talk to the person who wrote that book?" The kids are young still, right? So they're trying to understand this. But I brought up this conversation that you and I had a couple of years ago before the pandemic. We were at the restaurant show in Chicago, and it may not be as much of a big deal today, but back then, my question was, it's interesting that from a language perspective, that certain products leverage titles that we're used to, right? Plant-based chicken fingers, plant-based meatballs, right? So
Mhm.
we,
Mhm.
and my kids ask this too, right? If it's plant-based, and that's the way I posed the question to
Mhm.
you, why are we using the protein dialogue or language, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think your response at the time was something to the effect that we're not we're not dissing the fact that chicken tastes good. We're
Mhm.
just not we're just not eating chicken. We're
Mhm.
eating we're eating plant-based products, right? So
Mhm.
has that changed, Chad, or what was there some psychology around using a protein title in selling?
I think there has to be, because there has to be a reference point, right? There has to be a
Okay.
reference point, because if we did not serve our plant-based tuna product that Good Catch as plant-based tuna, and we basically called it six legume six legumed processed flakes with seafood flavor, like with ocean flavor, like who the hell's gonna buy that? You know
No
what
one's
I
going to buy
mean?
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or Beyond Burger is, extruded pea protein with beet juice that cooks like a burger. That's not appealing.
Yeah.
People a lot. I'm an ethical vegan, personally, first and foremost. I didn't stop eating meat because I don't like the flavor. I didn't stop eating seafood because I don't like the taste of seafood. I stopped eating it because I don't feel like, and a being should suffer for me to enjoy a meal. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and I love the taste of animal products. I just eat them without the animals
Yeah.
involved. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
Yeah.
and it's and I love having a melty cheese, and it hasn't been until recently that vegan cheese does that now, and so it's a breaking point, for the industry. And so we get this all the time, and you look at our YouTube channel, and you could look in particular. I do and I'm in Texas, so and I'm not Texan at all. But I put out and it was our video guy that demanded that we called it Texas Seitan brisket. And so we launched a brisket video, and you should just comically look at the comments. I mean, there are so many angry people on there saying, it's not brisket, this and that, and it's like, yeah, this is bread, this is grilled bread. I mean, the comments are really funny, but at the end of the day, like, if it's gonna get Uncle Joe down the road to try my product, because it's gonna taste like what he's used to, that's what we're gonna call it, because we're trying to make change. We're not trying to appeal to vegans. Vegans will find us, and I'll find whatever products that are out there. We're trying to make change, and in order to make change, you have to be part of the system, and not looking in, not looking out, but not looking out, but looking in to the problem, and we got to be part of that. So
That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah.
naming is critical. Marketing
Yeah.
is critical around it, and of course, big, the dairy association, and the Beef Association and all these guys, like they're fighting pretty hard against it because they're pretty pissed off that, it's their livelihood. And I have, have empathy for the choice of livelihood, but it's, everybody, each to their own, in my opinion. I don't think the world's going vegan, but the world should have options. There should be options, and there should be an opportunity around and every choice possible when you're choosing what you're eating for a meal.
When I watch you and Derek cook, the thing I love the most, well, you have fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much respect for the food that you're working with, whether you're working with just a beautiful mushroom or broccoli or whatever, cauliflower, whatever it is. There's just so much respect for the craft. That's probably the number one thing that we try to teach at our stoves, in our kitchens, in our classrooms, is just respect the craft, right?
That's it.
What do you think is the best way, in your mind, to introduce people to plant-based cooking? I mean, you've done a beautiful job with the book, right? But is there just an easy way to talk about it?
Depends on who it is. You know what I mean? If it's a chef, it's getting in the kitchen and, hey, let's cook together.
Let's
you know
cook.
What I mean? Or let me just show you some cool shit. Let me show you some stuff that some products on the market that you may not know about. Like there's creamers that work like half and half. There's, butters that work like butter. There's, chicken that cooks up like chicken. There's burgers and ground and, all of that. And you can even do that with vegetables. Oh, I don't want processed food. That's fine. Well, here's some core technique that we can, choose just standard vegetables and plants to give you that texture and that umami that we look for in meat, and animal products. And getting in the kitchen. I mean, if you're a foodie or if you're a chef, like that's the easiest way to convince somebody and not convince them, just to open their eyes. I mean, I'm not out here trying to convince anybody. It's like all my goal is to alleviate suffering. And if I can do that through the foods that I'm creating, amazing. And if somebody wants to see that there are other options besides reaching for that animal product, that's amazing. That's a win. You know what I mean? And that person walk away and say they're going vegan. That's not the goal. I mean, that would be cool, but that's not the goal. The goal is to say, hey, there's other options. Food's changing. Food science is now involved with culinary, and there's a very fine line there. You know what I mean? Science and art. I guess that could be debated all day. Like, what percentage of culinary is art? What percentage is science? And it's, the intersection of both is what makes the future of food so incredible. And plant-based is there. Plant-based is right at that intersection, and that's what we need to kind of look at and see.
So that right there, that's a TikTok reel right there. That was perfect. That was perfect. Hey, true, Chad, buddy, we're getting kind of close to the end here. I don't know where this 45 minutes has gone so fast, but I'm not going to let you go before I remind you that the name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So what is the ultimate dish in your world?
The ultimate dish in my world, well, it depends on the setting, really. But the ultimate dish, I'm going to take one out of my brother's page book here, which we've been really pushing here, is mushrooms. So mushrooms are hands down the most sustainable single ingredient on the planet. You can grow from spore to harvest in 2 weeks on a lot of these mushrooms. So, I mean, I would say, pressed grilled barbecue maitake there's nothing like that. I mean, just like you take a whole maitake, hot sear, cast iron press, and once it's seared, seasoned, let it sit in your favorite sauce, barbecue sauce, Asian barbecue, bulgogi, whatever, and then grill it, throw it on the grill, get that char, get those crispy bits, that caramelization, all that, and then chop it up, serve it with some bread or in a wrap or in a bao or whatever, so really good. That's my go-to. And otherwise it's fresh pasta. So
I love it. Well said. Very unique. Hey, thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it. I hope that you and the family have an amazing holiday, and congratulations on all the success.
Thanks, Kurt. Appreciate you, Kurt. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.